Hello, welcome into the Irish NFL show. It is the night that the season kicks off. My name is Michael McQuaid, joined by Colin Cronin, looking fresh there, Colin, Brian O'Leary, and Mark Cockerell. First off, Colin, welcome into you. How are you doing on this Thursday evening?
I am very well, Michael. It is the night that I suppose we've been waiting for ever since February. There's a long off season in the NFL. It doesn't matter if there's all the storylines. It's all about meaningful football. This is where the tackles actually matter, the touchdowns matter, and we have a proper humdinger of a game this evening.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, Michael. Well, we're into countdown mode now. Are we just less than 3.5 hours to kick off? And like we've been saying all week and in the previous shows, what a game to start the season, potentially a rematch coming, who knows, in February, and you couldn't have asked for a better game. The NFL have a way of making sure they put on a cracking game at the start of the season. We got it last year with the Bucks and the Cowboys, and I imagine come 4:30 in the morning our time when we'll still be up at those ridiculous hours, we'll have seen a great game tonight.
I'll hold you to it. I actually remember last year falling asleep during the Cowboys Bucks game. I think it was last year. Mark, good to see you. How you doing?
Good to see you too, Michael. I'm very well. Yeah, super excited about tonight. Super excited about Sunday for the big kickoff with everyone else's teams playing. So yeah, can't wait.
Well, we are presented by Cassidy Travel. Before we start off with anything else, Cassidy Travel, gents, are the largest travel agent in Ireland, and they now specialise in NFL travel. They've got two deals of the week. The first one is the Steelers against the Ravens on the 11th of December for only from €899, and the second one is the Dolphins and the Jets in Miami early January, around €980 per person. You can see at the bottom of the screen, it'll be in the bio as well. You can email Jay Donohoe at cassidytravel.ie. There's a phone number at the bottom there. If you're in the north, hit the 0 off, +353 first world problems. We've got a guest coming on in a few minutes. If you are listening to this or watching it live, feel free to go to YouTube, get some questions in, and we'll answer it towards the end of the show. We're going to get a guest on, we're going to talk about the kickoff game, and we're going to make some game picks. I guess before we bring our guest on, first off, Colin, I know you've already sort of talked about this, but it is a bit surreal. It's only really hit me maybe this evening that the season's back, because it seems like we were in LA 5 minutes ago. I mean, where does the time go? And obviously we are going straight through to Arizona. We'll be in London, we'll be in Munich, and we'll be in Arizona. So it's going to be a really exciting season.
Yeah, I think there are kind of so many storylines from the off season, the things to look forward to. It's incredible how quick the season goes by, even with the extra game. For the majority of us, it will be an 18-week season for our teams. The lucky few will get some extra playoff games, and obviously two will make it all the way to Arizona. There are going to be plenty of twists and turns along the way. There will be some injuries. There will be some unexpected superstars. I mean, this time last year, nobody thought the Bengals were going to the Super Bowl. Nobody thought Trayvon Diggs was going to have 11 interceptions. I'm wondering what the talking points for the 2022 season are going to be.
Even to everybody watching online, you can go on YouTube. If you're on YouTube later on, check out the link in the bio, both on YouTube and podcast, for an NFL Game Pass offer. Hi to Fred, hi to OC, hi to Dara. We'll talk about the total points in a bit. Dara, Brian, you sort of said about this being an exciting game tonight. We'll talk about it more later on, but is there any concern on your side that maybe it's edgy and both teams sort of cancel themselves out, or are you expecting the shootout?
I am expecting a shootout. I think in this particular game, I think the offenses might be ahead of the defenses. I think there's a lot of change on the Bills in particular. Like there's a lot of concern around the secondary. Like we're all assuming Von Miller's going to step in immediately, and I know we'll get into it when our guest comes on. But like there's a mixed opinion around how well Von Miller will be with this team in terms of will he be used sparingly or will he be in every game, every snap? Because we have seen he's had injury troubles throughout his career, and there was questions raised in eyebrows when the contract was given to him. But I guess he wanted the assurances at this stage of his career. And for the Rams, I mean, the Rams were in a lot of high-scoring games last year. Yeah, they came out the right side of some of them, but their defense on the day, yeah, they have shut down corners. But I mean, we saw firsthand in LA what the Bengals were able to do on that defense, and they came through in the end. But with the two offense, they have the two quarterbacks, the players on the field. Cup, Robinson making his debut. And then on the other side, you've got Gabe Davis, who's now a proper starter. Diggs. We should be seeing points tonight. We have seen games in the past, first day of the season, first the opening game, where it doesn't materialise, defence get on top. I don't see that tonight. I expect a high-scoring game.
Mark, did you get that T-shirt whenever Cam Newton was playing for the Pats, or is it too early in the season to have a bit of crack? For everyone listening to this, Mark is wearing a Superman T-shirt, and you're wearing it quite well, to be fair.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. No, this is a throwback to Christopher Reeve, not necessarily Cam Newton, is what I would say. But just taking on the theme, we talk about Supermen, and we always talk about the NFL. It's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. But of course, you look at the way some of these people can move and some of the way they're built. They're certainly not ordinary in the sense that the four of us are. The prime athletes in their prime, but some obviously are missing, kind of alluding to the game. Tre'Davious White's out for the Bills because he started the season on the PUP. This is not the offense going up against the Rams you want to be missing your absolute shutdown corner with. So that also leads to the fact that, we expect offenses to be on top tonight, and we expect a really exciting, really good game, especially with how these two quarterbacks finished the end of the 21-22 season.
We have our guest coming on in a few minutes. We have Nate Geary coming on from the Buffalo Bills. Brian, I believe that you would like to make a point, not just on the season, but also the broadcast as well. If I can read minds or what that is.
Yeah, well, you're right there, Michael, because we did thank everybody at the end of last season. And what I would say throughout the course of the off-season, we've had some really good, consistent numbers in terms of people taking in the show, and we've been fortunate to have some great guests. But like this season the show has got bigger and better as it's grown throughout the years. I think this is our second full season doing it with the half of the other previous season, and we've had great guests on. And now we have, like, the London games last year was only 2. We've got 3 this year. We've got the Munich game, and as you said, we're hoping to be in Arizona come February. So great season ahead, great show ahead. I imagine with you guys, and it's only really when we get into the games and we have the really entertaining Monday shows where we poke fun at our teams when they've had difficult defeats. That's what really makes it so much more worthwhile.
Yeah, and hello to everyone watching on Twitter, on YouTube, listening on a Friday morning after the NFL kickoff on the podcast. Fair play to you if you are. Colin, before we get our guest on, I was going to go around everyone before Brian made that lovely sentiment there. Is there one thing that you're looking forward to this season outside of the games? For me, it's going to Munich. Talking to the head of marketing for the Seahawks, and what they've got planned for the city is nuts. It's going to be a great crack for anybody going out there from Ireland. I'm flying on the Wednesday and back on the Monday, so if anybody wants to jump in the flight and have a bit of crack. Are we all going to Munich, Colin? Are you going to Munich as it stands? Are you still TBC, or what's the plans?
I would love to be. I'm buying an extra Euro Millions line every single draw at the moment, Michael. I think maybe I'll need it in order to get tickets for that game. When you see 750,000 people in a queue, it tells you the way in which this game is growing exponentially. I suppose, in terms of what to look forward to, we talked a little bit, in our season preview show, in our divisional previews, in terms of some of the players that we're looking forward to. But the last time, we saw meaningful football in terms of the playoffs, it was incredible. That was some of the best playoff football I think we've seen. The games, so many games going down to the wire. The last time we saw the Bills, Josh Allen gave a performance of the ages. To do what he did and to still end up on the losing side. Or, you go through that playoff series last year, and how many of them came down to last-second field goals. Aaron Donald in the Super Bowl. So I don't know if there's another sport like the NFL where so much of it comes down, to the last second. You see it occasionally in college football. We saw it, say, with LSU the other night. But then you look at some of the other college football scores, and you had teams being beaten by 50 points. You rarely see a team lose by something like that in the NFL. They say any given Sunday for a reason.
Mark, you're sitting there very quietly. Are you already nervous about Miami on on Sunday. I heard that Bill Belichick took his team down 5 days early to the swamp. Is this true?
Yeah, to acclimatise.
Is he worried?
Patriots always lose in Miami. Nearly always lose. So he took advantage of the time to bring him down and hopefully acclimatise to the heat. We'll see if it makes any difference in relation to it. But, I'm excited for the whole season. I mean, I'm hearing it already. Brian's still got that vestige of hope and expectation in his voice, mainly because the Giants haven't taken the field yet. So, that will soon be dashed very shortly. Colm is proudly, for those of you watching on the podcast, proudly got a Cowboys jersey up behind him with DeMarcus Ware, which is an interesting sight. And I look forward to seeing his array of clothing. I mean, I'm wearing the Superman jersey, but Colm's shirts are worldwide famous at this point. So we're looking forward to all of those pieces. But more importantly than anything, I mean, it's been a great offseason, as Brian alluded to. Some of the guests on, talking to GMs around the league, talking to Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings. You guys, I was taking a Tom Brady-esque sabbatical. But at the same token, nothing beats football being back. Nothing beats seeing how all of the projections play out. Because last season, this Bills team probably should have won the Super Bowl. They were 13 seconds away from doing the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. You would like to have thought they would have been favored against the Bengals, and all the stars were aligning. That is why they're such hot favorites. Everyone's touting them this year because they seem to have all the pieces. But of course, you have to get on the field, you have to play the game, and see how it goes.
Let's look at this game tonight. If you have any questions, go on to YouTube, type in Irish NFL Show. We can pop it up on the screen later on in the broadcast. I know we're going to bring a guest on in a few moments, but just looking at the game tonight, Colm, for Josh Allen having to play against the Rams is one thing. Obviously, he's now got Von Miller on the other side of the ball for this team. They have a new OC, and they're heading to LA. Do you think that's going to be an issue for them tonight, or do you look at the whole situation around Matthew Stafford with this injury, which apparently is not an injury anymore? Apparently he's fine. There's no issues, etc., etc. So he should be sweet, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is where I think fans need to probably realize that everything you see teams come out and maybe spin in the press isn't necessarily always the case. So there were no issues at all whatsoever. He had a little bit of soreness in his elbow, nothing to worry about, all grand. He'll be fine. Don't worry about him not throwing in camp. Don't worry about him not throwing in the preseason. Oh, he had some surgery. No, that not a big issue though. But then why did he need the surgery if it wasn't a big issue, Sean? I would have concerns, right? Any time a QB has surgery on their throwing arm, whatever it is, you've got to be a little bit concerned by it. Now, Matthew Stafford, as we saw time and time again from his Detroit days, is super tough. And he will go out, he will battle. We know that. But if you're the Bills, what you're going to look to do is to take the middle of the field away. This is where the Tre'Davious White loss, it could really hurt them though, because what you're going to essentially look to do is force Stafford to throw it to the outside, not allow the Rams to run effectively, not allow them to use the inside of the field, make him make the difficult throws time and time again, and see how he gets on. Going to be a little bit of a baptism of fire for their rookie cornerback, even though he went obviously very high in the draft. So it will be interesting to see obviously the matchup, but you have two really good teams.
Brian, is there anything that stands out to you in this game, maybe outside of the obvious? So like outside of that Bills offense, outside of the whole Von Miller factor, going for his third ring at a different team. The Rams are interesting. Like, I mean, they haven't got Odell there. Do you think he'll come back in at some point this season? Because they've literally left a locker room spot they've left a locker room spot for him. Excuse me, we're live, week 1. So there's a big question mark for me around it. I don't know. Sorry.
Well, the door is open because he's not due back till November, and you'd imagine the Rams will have first choice on him come November, and they'll obviously give him a workout and see if he's ready to come back. But you're asking for a start on the game that people haven't picked up on. Everybody's talking about Ken Dorsey, the the new offensive coordinator of the Bills, I jumped to the other sideline. Liam Cohen is the new offensive coordinator of the Rams, and it's a bit of a left field move. They've brought him in from the college game from Kentucky. Sean McVay has said throughout the course of the training camp that he feels more comfortable with him. He's more obliged to give him an opportunity to call the plays. I don't think it's been confirmed that he's going to do that, but maybe as the season progresses. And we did have Kevin O'Connell on. There was some chit chat and conversation. If you read certain reports that he was there as offensive coordinator, essentially it was still Sean McVay doing all the play calling. So when you read that, and then you read that Sean McVay is very keen to hand it over, it's interesting to see this guy's come in from his background. How will he adapt to the situation? So I'm interested to see that. And Ken Dorsey's a bit of a character. I don't know if anybody's seen his press conference over the last few weeks where he's been called a psychopath and things like that. So he seems to be evolving and taking well to his new role. But he's been there for quite a while, so it feels like a very easy transition to go and work with Josh Allen. So I'm more keen to see how this Rams offense is established early in the game and as the course of the season goes on.
Mark, can you see Cooper Kupp going to even like the next level this year? He was incredible last year. Obviously won the Super Bowl. We were there seeing him catch that last touchdown in the game at the Super Bowl in February. What's your expectations for him this season?
Well, I mean, if he can maintain what he did last season, which was at near historic levels in itself, I think the LA Rams should be very happy with that. Again, the guys alluded to, Beckham isn't there, so you're relying upon Allen Robinson, who's coming from Chicago, to take some of the attention away. And that's going to continue to be key, because teams are going to be fearful of him, obviously burning them and hurting them. An underlying, you asked though a little bit, Michael, what's the underlying storyline that's maybe going a bit missed? People haven't focused, I don't feel, enough on that Rams O-line. With Whitworth retiring and with Corbett going in free agency as well, that's going through a bit of transition. And going up against Von Miller and the Bills pass rush generally was his number one defense last year. Let's remember that. Okay, they don't have White tonight, but they've got Miller. They haven't exactly got worse, guys. So that's a challenge for them. But also Cam Akers. I mean, think about offense. I mean, we know Kupp. We know Allen Robinson. We're all big fans of him in relation to it. But Cam Akers is coming back. I mean, he moved mountains to get back last season just for the playoffs. Wasn't the same player. If he can recreate that rookie season and give them more dynamism out of the backfield, that's a huge development for that offense, adds a full another layer to it. And that's going to be really interesting to see how he continues to bounce back and evolve from there.
There's another one for you, Michael. You're looking for a little star and a little nugget that some people may not be looking for. There's a potential star in the making with the Rams, a wide receiver by the name of Lance McCutcheon. He's come in late pick in the draft. He seems to be setting the world alight in camp in the preseason games, and there's a lot of people feeling that he could be the surprise player for this year. We've seen over the course of the years, there's wide receivers who, whilst the first round was stacked with them, and there's Sky Moore and Wandale Robinson in the second round, we don't get to see many who are down the fourth, fifth round, potentially even the sixth. So there's a great storyline there that they think this guy is the real deal and can potentially make it. It'd be interesting to see if he gets any game time tonight or many snaps, and if he can make an impact.
Yeah, as a Simpsons fan, I definitely know that word McCutcheon, and it's a good one. Anything else, Colin, that you want to add in this game? I feel like the Rams, I don't want to give away my pick, so I don't want to talk around it either. I've seen Sean McVay got an extension today as well, so it gives him some sort of certainty, and it only came out today, even though it was agreed apparently weeks or months ago. Strange, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it could be a case that it might be a bit like, Sean McVay, Sean Payton. Who knows? We know he flirted a little bit with perhaps moving on this off season. We know the contract that Tom Brady has waiting for him when he does eventually ride off into the sunset. I have no doubt that McVay might get even more than that if he was to become an analyst with perhaps even Amazon, given the money that Jeff Bezos has. The interesting thing, I suppose, in terms of this game tonight for McVay is, one of the things McVay does incredibly well is his scheme, right? And particularly the scripted stuff to start. And so McVay is 5-0 to start the season. And so that is going to, but up to now, the Rams have always been favorites to start the season. This is a little bit different tonight, going into a game. And even though they are at home, they're not the favorites, which is a really interesting one out there, because it's been going on for, I think this is year 17 of the Super Bowl champions opening the new season. And in that time, the reigning Super Bowl champions are 14-2. So they usually win. And part of that is the fact that, and it's obviously a little bit different for the Rams, but traditionally you don't win the Super Bowl, in your home stadium, despite what we've seen the last couple of years. So it's the opportunity to bring out the Lombardi, to get the fans the opportunity for, a partisan home crowd to really get behind the team, which makes life really, really difficult, obviously, for the away side. So that is one to keep an eye on this evening. Can McVay keep that streak alive?
Yeah, and just to add to that, Colin, it's not just 5-0 in season openers, 14-3 in September. He always has that Rams team ready and rocking to go right at the start of the season. And just about the contract, I think he had announced or he had not announced, but he mentioned in an interview he'd signed an extension. But the Rams, I believe, held up on announcing until today because they were waiting to also sign up Les Snead, the general manager. So very much in keeping with the coach and the GM, the team combined. And obviously, Snead has done more than most GMs in terms of the shaping of this, in terms of a kind of a retro policy of trading draft picks quite liberally in order to build up the team. So they're very much keen to keep the brains trust together. Announced them both today, have both signed extensions through to 2026. So for Rams fans, at least, the idea of consistency of that dream team who has brought them to the promised land with their Super Bowl victory, the second in the Rams' history. Obviously, the other one with St. Louis is huge for them in respect of for that. And look, you look at the same in Buffalo. You look at the same at any successful franchise. You want the stability not just at the head coaching position, but also that general manager position. And we've talked before, a lot of the offseason moves by certain teams, a la the Giants, a la the Vikings, and a few others, has been very much about let's move these parties in together as a team and a unit to combine together. So that's good to see, and good consistency for the Rams, hopefully. Maybe they'll hang around long enough to actually make a pick in the draft again if they don't stop trading them.
Michael, I saw a great quote your day on one of the podcasts. It was, "This is now, that was then." But like, we've had year in, year out where there's teams who have suffered from the Super Bowl hangover. And I know it was the Bills didn't go to the Super Bowl. You would suggest the most talking point of the offseason when you reflect on the games last year was that 13-second, debacle in Kansas City. And on the back of that, then the league made a decision to, the overtime rule changed on the back of that game. There was so much about that game throughout the course of the offseason. And I'd be interested to see how the Bills react to, are they over it? It's a long time, I get it, but we have seen teams. The Falcons have never been the same from that Super Bowl. Everybody felt that they'd come back the following year. They lost their offensive coordinator that off-season. Kyle Shanahan went to the 49ers. Similar scenario here with the Bills. Their offensive coordinator is going to be the Giants head coach. We're assuming they're going to react positively. They're going to have a great season. They're favourites for the Super Bowl. Heavily touted here as potential winners on the show in terms of our Super Bowl preview show, but we just don't know. We don't know what we're going to get from them.
Time will tell. Column Irish Cowboys are very happy with the jersey behind you tonight. Big shout out to them. Seeing people that I haven't heard from in months, just because I haven't been on certain Twitter feeds in months, seeing stuff. It's great to see so many people back. If you do have a comment, go on to YouTube, type in a comment. We can put it up on the screen if you want. If you're listening in on a podcast, thank you also for listening. Colin, Jalen Ramsey's probably going to hold Stephon Diggs tonight. How key is somebody like Gabriel Davis or another offensive weapon to Josh Allen, especially when, the Rams don't have that massive home advantage if we learned anything from February, but they're still going in as champions. There's going to be a good atmosphere. They're going to presumably unveil some sort of flag or something tonight, so it should be a hostile enough environment for Josh Allen on the offense.
Well, that'll be interesting to see, just how partisan. And look, Bills Mafia will be there undoubtedly. There will be plenty of broken tables in the City of Angels tonight. yeah, look, Ramsey obviously going up against Diggs is going to be an interesting one where Ramsey kind of lines up. Because he's not just going to stay on Diggs the whole game. We know Ramsey moves around. They'll use him in different ways. And that was probably something to definitely keep an eye on. You mentioned it earlier, the fact that Gabe Davis has kind of grown into WR2, the fact that the Bills' running game should have improved in terms of last year. And as well, I suppose what will also be interesting is to see, the way in which Josh Allen, like early on last year, they weren't really using him as a rusher. He was definitely kind of dumping the ball off or throwing it out, and then the playoffs came around, and he was all action at that point. Are they going to really go for it from the off this year, or will they kind of be a little bit conservative with Josh Allen and kind of want to keep him fresh for the challenges to come? Don't forget that the Bills lost their opening game last year to a Steelers side who, somehow themselves made the playoffs thanks to marvelous Mike Tomlin. It isn't going to be the end of the world, really. When you're starting off, you obviously want to start with a win. And when we come to picks, talk a little bit more about that. I'm sure there will be plenty of overreaction no matter which way this goes.
Yeah, I mean, you touch on Diggs, but there is and Gabe Davis has now obviously locked himself in as the number 2 receiver, but there's other players there. McKenzie had a really good season last year. Dawson Knox is coming back, great tight end. And then the run game, like as well as the Bills have been over the past few years, their run game hasn't been consistent. Singletary, Moss, but let's see what they're going to get out of their second round pick. James Cook, the brother of Dalvin Cook, could be interesting to see how quickly he gets established in the team, because he looks like a great player and a great pickup. There's a lot of teams were trying to get him. They felt he would be a third round pick, and he went late second because I think the Bills recognised they needed a new running back, and they get him in the second was a steal at the back end of the second round. So will he play tonight? Will he make the team more kind of robust in terms of it's not all about Josh Allen rushing the ball. It's not all about the wide receivers, tight end, that they actually establish a proper run game throughout the course of the season and take a bit of pressure off Josh Allen, because whilst he's great in the rushing, he gets some hits and he puts his head in where you wouldn't expect it. And at some stage you wouldn't like to think that he would get an injury.
Sorry, you would like to think you'll get an injury. What was that? Huh?
Corrected myself, Mark. I said I wouldn't.
I'm just worried about him putting his head in places that you don't expect as well. But I'll let that slide, Brian. I mean, let's just. I mean,
securing
Josh
the body
Allen can be an overused storyline in one respect, but due credit. I mean, Michael, you brought up Cooper Kupp there, and last year, of course, Cooper Kupp led the league in catches, touchdowns, and in yards as a receiver. Josh Allen, let's remember some of his stats from last year, and the most impressive one for me wasn't his amazing stats as a thrower and as a passer, but it's the 763 yards on the ground. We were talking in our predictions about Jonathan Taylor and about how he adds another dynamic as a receiver and added 300-400 yards through the air effectively as well. But Josh Allen adding that piece to what has at times been a moribund Bills rush offense is critical. Because one of the things he has done extremely well, really since he broke through in his key third year as a quarterback, is that decision-making has been spot on. When to run, when to pass, when to make that decision, when to, just take the hit. His athleticism is amazing, but it's that decision-making that's been critical. And that's what's driven those amazing games, those amazing performances, such as against the Chiefs and otherwise. But two last points about the Bills, I'll just say. One concern I would have if I'm a Bills fan isn't necessarily about that defense, which I said was first in the league last year. Isn't that amazing offense? But it's one part of that offense. That offensive line, I think you can still raise legitimate questions on. Are they good enough to burst holes in the run game, which outside of Allen has been sporadic? Are they solid enough in pass protection? Because Allen is this team and he is that franchise. And the second thing, we mentioned his name a little bit, but due credit, Gabriel Davis. I mean, his regular season stats were a bit low, just under 600 yards and about 6 touchdowns. But let's not forget the last time he touched the field, He went for 200 yards. He went for a playoff record 4 touchdowns in that Chiefs game. He blew up. And Sean McDermott, get the right Sean involved, has been raving about him in training camp and in the preseason. So he could be due for a breakthrough year. Certainly his head coach thinks so. And it'll be interesting to see him continue that momentum. Opposite, of course, Stefan Diggs, who we haven't mentioned, who is amazing in his own right.
Yeah, and we will come back to our picks before the end of this broadcast. A couple of comments on the over and under. We'll get that into the picks, and thanks everyone for putting that in. If you want to add some more in, we'll get to the end of the show. Okay, so let's look at some games this weekend, or like talk around some games this weekend. We've got a broadcast tomorrow night where we're going to go through every game. It starts at 9:30 and it's live on YouTube, on Twitter, and the podcast, please God, will be up before midnight. So we're going to split it into different sections. So if you want to listen to a certain team, we'll timestamp it, etc. And we'll have that up as soon as possible. As quickly as Brian can get it edited on Adobe Audition, hopefully. So in terms of Sunday, lads, one game that I'm really looking forward to is the Steelers against the Bengals, because the question really comes out to me without giving picks away. You know, will the Bengals have a Super Bowl hangover? The game is in Cincinnati. Mike Tomlin seems very intrigued in his quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. Is he being fully serious? Is he letting on that he really trusts him or not? What's George Pickens going to be like? You got Najee Harris. What's the defense going to be like for Pittsburgh? As somebody that drafted Joe Mixon tonight in a sleeper draft, the column was on auto draft for. I'm excited to see it. So I'm excited to see that game on Sunday. I genuinely, as of right now, can't really call it, which about a month ago I might not have said, but I really have a strange couple of feelings or opinions on this game, which we'll talk about tomorrow night. Is there anything in that game column that stands out to you before you maybe give your thoughts on a game this weekend?
I suppose, look, you've talked about it a little bit, Michael. The Steelers are always super physical at the start of a new season, and that's because of the way in which they go about things in camp. Some teams, don't go full pads or take things a little bit easy. The Steelers go at it from the off, and that is the way in which Mike Tomlin likes it, and that's why they maybe caught the Bills last year. That's why they had the 11-0 season, for a time where they were unbeatable. The thing I might say in relation to that, the Bengals might be ready for that, given what they faced from Aaron Donald in the joint practice. So that will be one to keep an eye on. For me, in terms of what I'm looking forward to at the weekend, well, it's the Chargers against the Raiders. I mean, what a matchup. I mean, the Chargers, who, are many people's pick for the Super Bowl, given the roster they have, given they have a rookie, a stupidly talented rookie quarterback on that rookie quarterback contract, and the aid that is in terms of roster building, going up against the Raiders and possibly the best pass catching trio in the entirety of the league. But got the O-line concerns. Going to be interesting to see how Mack and Bosa can they take advantage of that. As I think Mark and I have talked about numerous times, the Chargers being the Chargers, will they find a way, despite having such an incredibly talented roster, to charger it up? Because they seem to have, find ways to beat themselves, ways you couldn't even possibly imagine. And somehow they do it. But they should be one of the most exciting teams in the league this year. The Raiders, if the O-line can hold up, their offense could be absolutely ridiculous. So that should be a really great week one matchup.
I know we're going to get into more details tomorrow night in each game. But already today, I'm finding it very intriguing by the fact that their major cornerback signing in free agency, J.C. Jackson, has been ruled out for the game, and essentially he was brought in to be the main man to cover all these great wide receivers within the division. I'm interested who's going to pick up the slack and go after Devontae Adams on Sunday already, but the game might come as a bit of a surprise. The one I'm actually more intrigued about in the 6 o'clock slate is the Ravens going to the Jets, because there's been so much talk of this Jets team and what Joe Douglas has done has put a really good squad together, and then it was all going to be backed by the quarterback going into a second year, Zach Wilson, who's now been ruled out to week 4, which is comes as a big surprise for the New York media and the Jets fans, but it was interesting that we picked up on Salah's press conference, but essentially what he said was he's out to week 4, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm not going to answer any more questions on it. So that's antagonised quite a lot of people. And the Ravens, who, they were so devastated with injuries last year, there's so much expectations. I haven't gone to the championship game. I've seen some people picking them for the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson hasn't signed the contract. That's a story in itself. But there is big things expected of the Ravens. And when we did our show in June, Michael and me and you picked the Jets to win this game. But I have a funny feeling come Sunday or come tomorrow even, we may have changed our pick on that game. But it'd be interesting to see how the Jets get on, because there is, despite no expectations for the playoffs, there is expectations that they will make an upward curve in year 2 under Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas.
Yeah, Michael, pick a game. There's a storyline to every game. It's the beauty of the NFL, especially in week 1. There's something to get excited about in every single game. There are people that are going to love to see the 49ers at the Bears. You've got Trey Lance versus Justin Fields and how all that's going to pan out. I know we're not very strong on the Bears' chances this year, so there's a chance to see a live, real-time fire potentially occurring in a burning building there. But how Trey Lance and that 49ers offense is going to play under him and whether Kyle Shanahan has worked his magic is fascinating. But also think of, I'm not going to call it the revenge tour, but the return tour. You've got the Browns going in to meet, again, Mr. Baker Mayfield in Carolina. You've got Russell Wilson in his first game as a Bronco going up to Seattle in relation to it. You've got a run back on Sunday Night Football of our season opener last year, Tampa Bay and Dallas. Brady, Prescott, massive franchises with big expectations. There are storylines upon storylines all the way. What I love is just for fans, football being back. And Colin mentioned the Chargers game. There's a friend of mine, he's a Chargers fan, Ivan, is going over for what I can imagine is one of the best trips possible. He's going to go and see the Chargers versus the Raiders at SoFi for his first visit. And then before he comes back, he's going to do the Chiefs game on the Thursday night at Arrowhead. So, this is the beauty now of us all being able to plan, going back over to the US, seeing the games live. Fantastic.
Let's go round again and get more opinions on this weekend and what we're looking forward to. For me, I'm excited to see the Lions against the Eagles because I want to see exactly, first off, are the Eagles a real deal in the NFC East? Can Jalen Hurts take a step up? How is Nick Sirianni's offense going to look this year? Is Dan Campbell the real deal in Detroit? Is Aiden Hutchinson going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year? Can Jared Goff potentially become a decent quarterback in the league? I don't know, but I am intrigued to see it. I will have my eyes. I'm going to have 4 or 5 games on at once on Game Pass, so you can check out the link in our bio on the podcast to sign up for this weekend's games. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Colm, the Lions and the Eagles game is interesting because and I know we'll talk about this more tomorrow night, but I don't think it's going to be as one-sided as everyone thinks it is, personally.
I wouldn't imagine it'll be as one-sided as it was last season, but because look, you've got a lot of new pieces, obviously, for the Eagles, and that'll take a little bit of time to gel. But if people watched our season preview show, they know I am very high on this Eagles team and what that roster, how he has constructed, how deep they can go. So for me, that would be important that they hit the ground running and get their season off to a good start. I am really intrigued to see, I suppose, what the Cardinals and the Chiefs will get up to. The Cards, just a really strange offseason. I think in terms of Cliff gets a new contract. We've talked about the Kyler Murray situation, but what exactly are the Cardinals? For the Chiefs, it's about, I think, constructing a new identity in a post Tyreek Hill world. But I would have faith in Andy Reid and what he can do. We saw, I suppose, they probably struggled a little bit with the too high looks last year. All teams eventually kind of ended up dealing with all the good teams, right? Everyone basically went to the too high look. The Bills probably dealt with it a little bit better last year, in many respects than the Chiefs, though obviously ultimately the Chiefs will go on to beat them. But I think what you will see is over the course of the offseason, a new install, and Patrick Mahomes, like his down year, and this is where I suppose the likes of Derek Carr has to prove it, right? Patrick Mahomes' down year looks like a kind of a career year for Derek Carr. So can Patrick Mahomes, take it back up to where he was, or is it life a lot more difficult in a post Tyreek Hill world? And also, can Travis Kelce continue to do Travis Kelce-esque things? There were times last season where he struggled a little bit, and we wondered, was he declining? He found his rhythm again. He is going to be incredibly important to them. But that Chiefs offense, that's one to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Sky's live game at 9:25. We haven't really touched too much on this NFC North battle, which is going to be the Packers against the Vikings. I mean, we got into a right ding-dong, I'd say, last week around what our thoughts are on this Vikings team. Mark's talking about Gordon Ramsay and chefs, and I'm saying sack that chef, and that's Kirk Cousins. But again, that's down to the inconsistencies of what we've seen over the years. And then Colin alluded to the fact that Zimmer's gone, and therefore all the bad blood is now out of the organisation. Yeah, Kevin O'Connell's been brought in. Essentially, we feel that this offense is so strong, and they have all the players, and he can get them going. And again, they're going to go against a Packers team that right now we're not sure what's going to come in this offense, because Devontae Adams was the main man for so long, and we've had the Rodgers outburst during training camp where he's suggested if some players don't kind of get their act together, they won't be playing come week one, or beyond that, because they weren't really at the expectation which he had. So it'd be interesting to see whether they can deliver on Sunday. I recall a game last season, I think, Michael, you were the only one that picked the Cards when they played the Packers. Sorry, you picked the Packers when the Cards were expected to win. And a lot of that was down to the fact that the Packers were missing 3 or 4 wide receivers on the night, but yet they still won the game because Rodgers is such a great quarterback. It doesn't seem to matter who was playing wide receiver. And I'd imagine that will happen throughout the course of this season. We have seen the Vikings turn them over at home in the past. It's a very close game. If you look at even the betting angle, I mean, they're literally a line in terms of the pricing. The bookmaker not sure who's going to win. I don't think any of us could put a hand on the heart and really be convinced by either side, but it's a great storyline for a week one game, a divisional battle.
Am I contractually obliged to mention New England are playing Miami? Is that just something
I'll contractually go even further and say the game's on Sky Sports.
I know, it's great.
I mean, it's obviously the international home marketing agreement, and that's a great thing for everyone, and we hope somebody takes Ireland as a market, as a separate country. But that game is on Sky Sports on Sunday.
Great. I mean,
why?
Can I?
What alternatives would you pick at 6 o'clock, Mike?
I'll tell you what, I'll do what they're doing in Germany. There's 3 games on at 6 o'clock, and there's another one on a website for free, like RT Player, BBC iPlayer. So, what game would I put on 6? I'd rather watch Baker Mayfield go up against the Browns, and that's saying a lot. Maybe the Steelers against the Bengals might be a better game to watch.
You'd rather watch
Raiders Chargers instead of the Vikings against the Packers. I mean, I could go on and on, lads. I don't understand why that. Well, I do understand why that game's on, but it's all good. It's all positive. And I am looking forward to watching Miami play New England. And what I'm sure, and we'll talk about this tomorrow night, Mark, I know you'll preview it a wee bit now, it's going to be a very, very tight game. The Mac is back.
I don't think I've been as excited, nervous, petrified, confused, all the emotions. I feel quite sick in many respects for a season opener. So your guess is as good as mine in one respect, Michael.
Welcome to my world. Welcome to my world, Mark.
Yeah, live in hope, but prepare for the worst as well. So we'll see how it all pans out.
Okay, alrighty. If you're listening to this on a podcast on Friday morning, we are live at 9:30 on Friday night for 90 minutes to go through every game from the week 1 slate of games. We look forward to hearing from you. If you want to jump in on YouTube, put some questions and some comments in. And if you are just listening in audio format, the sections or the picks will be available towards midnight on Friday night. Please, God, thank you very much for listening. Okay, are we going to give our picks for tonight, or will we talk about something else, or what do you want to do, lads? You tell me.
Is there any questions in, Michael, that we can take on before we give our picks?
Okay, great. Let's have a look. Okay, I feel like I'm like Bruce Forsyth here. Fred says evening. OC. Well, so Dara was saying, listen to like there's a betting podcast on as well. Total points tonight. I've the under. He's saying, so the over under spread in terms of points is 53.5. So I personally, lads, would go with the under. Does anybody want to jump in there?
So I'd say, Michael, the last time these two teams played 2 years ago was a cracking game. 35-32 to the Rams. And I'd actually give it the same scoreline tonight. I think it's going to be a highly entertaining game. So give me the over on that one anytime.
I'll lean under. 53.5 makes me nervous. It's such a big number to get to. It only takes a couple of slow drives early on in the game to find yourself trying to catch up very quickly in the second and third quarter. I still think it'll be a high scoring game. 50 points, give or take. Just about under.
I'm going the under. I think it'll be a slow game. I think I'll top this in a minute. I think it'll start slow. I would go with the under. If the point spread is 12.5 in the first half, in terms of 12.5 points, I go with the under. I think it'll come out stop start because it's the first game of the season. It's a rusty game of the season, and we'll see. And Declan is saying in the comments under as well. Good man, Declan. Gavin, Bills getting off to a good start tonight, on their way to a defeat versus Philly in the Super Bowl. Looking forward to more great contact, lads. Can't believe I only found ye in the last 12 months. Some journey since.
Thanks,
I thought I cut off. Thanks very much, Gavin. I really appreciate that. And yes, okay. Thanks everyone for your questions as well. Really appreciate it. There's about 100 on Twitter, lads, that don't pop up, so I apologise in that sense as well. Let's get into picking games. So the NFL kicks off at 1:20 tonight with the Bills against the Rams. In interesting game. It could be something that we see in Arizona in February. The Bills going for their first Super Bowl with Josh Allen. Didn't get it done against Kansas City last year, Colin, whereas the Rams won the Super Bowl in their home stadium. What's your thoughts on this game tonight, and who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, you'd feel for Josh Allen. Talked about it earlier. One of the truly great playoff performances from a quarterback led to the playoff rules getting changed. Though both teams knew at that time what they were, but I think everyone will be happy to see, the likelihood that both QBs get the ball in overtime in the playoffs. It is only in relation to the playoffs. Nobody wants probably to see extra during maybe a week 15 or 16 kind of dead rubber game. For this, look, to me, it comes down to those 13 seconds and the fact that they have hung around all throughout the off season, and I think the Bills need to exercise those demons quickly, because if they don't, it could quickly become an albatross around their neck, and all sorts of fingers could be pointed. So while they're going up against a magnificently talented Rams team with a fantastic head coach, the Bills simply need to win this. There will be other games they will lose this year, but I think that they need to win this, because if they can go into SoFi, they beat the reigning Super Bowl champions, they know, that 13 seconds will quickly be forgotten about. They'll have justified, their preseason hype a little bit. It'll certainly be a step in the right direction. So to me, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen and the Bills are getting the win to open the season.
There's a couple of parts we haven't really focused on tonight. We didn't focus too much on the Bills' offensive line. I mean, there's a lot of mixed opinions on whether that offensive line is really stellar and can compete, and Josh Allen is so efficient in terms of getting himself outside the pocket that he doesn't get sacked as much as other quarterbacks. But if you look at the stats around the rushes and the pressures last season, it wasn't great. And there's still people who are concerned about that Bills offensive line going up against a defense which in fairness has lost Von Miller, but Aaron Donald's still there, and there's other players such as Justin Hollins who are going to step into Von Miller's shoes, and there's big expectations for them. And then on the flip side, something that we didn't really get towards the back end of the season was a consistent run game from the Rams, because Cam Akers came back late with an injury. He played in the playoffs, no one expected. Henderson was out for a period of time in injury. Now they're saying they're all back, they're all fully fit, and they're going to be much more efficient, take pressure off Stafford. Where I feel the game will come down to, I look at the wide receivers and which team I feel is better suited, and for me that's the Rams. And I look at the cornerbacks that are going to play for the Bills. So you touched on it earlier, Tre'Davious White is out. They're going to play their first round pick, Caleb Elam, is going to play immediately. It's a big starting point for him in his career to go in there against Super Bowl champions. On the other side, they're going with a 7th round pick from 2 years ago, Dane Jackson, who's actually only played 7 games throughout the course of his career. So you're asking me which quarterback can be more effective in terms of taking shots down the field and probably get the better play. On the wide receivers, for me, it's the Rams. I see a great game, real close, come down to the wire. I think we'll see a similar outcome to what we saw when we were in SoFi last February with the Rams, just about pulling out the win.
There's blasphemy against the Bills wide receiving core. You've got Stephon Diggs, you've got Gabe Davies, and like I said, last time he was on the field, 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. What more do you want, Brian? I know they've got the wonderful, in many ways incomparable Cooper Kupp, but the Bills wide receivers are weapons in their own right. Let's not also forget, in some instances, especially if people are interested in the whole offense, the tight ends. Don't overlook the tight ends. Dawson Knox is more than a capable receiving threat and threatened the red zone, 9 touchdowns last year. Tyler Higbee on the Rams side as well. I mean, he's always good to pop up for a anytime touchdown at some point along the way. But Knox, I think, is more dynamic. For many reasons, yes, there's a question on the offensive line. Yes, it's very disappointing they don't have Tre'Davious White for such an exciting wide receiver core they go up against. But look at the rest of that defense. It is a serious unit on the Bills. I don't think they'll completely shut down the Rams. It's going to be an exciting game. And like I said, the last game these two teams played, 35-32 in favor of the Rams. This time, I think it's going to be 35-32 as well. Tight, goes down to the wire, but this time in favor of the Bills. There's your over. Nice and doing business with you all, gents. Look forward to multiple touchdowns. Josh Allen to lead a touchdown-winning drive with the last drive of the game.
Sean McVay is 5-0 in season openers, and usually I think it's 14-3 or 14-10-3 for Super Bowl winners hosting in their home stadium. I can't remember the exact record. The Rams are an interesting concept because they've lost Odell Beckham and they've lost Von Miller. Von Miller goes to the Bills. I actually sort of tear it down from that there. The Buffalo Bills in January, when they went to what I think is an actual football stadium with fans that will scream at you, like Big Red, for example, in Andy Reid, they went and scored 36 points against Patrick Mahomes. And what at the time I would have considered, maybe not anymore, a very, very good defense. Talk about that more tomorrow night. 36 points, and they were then robbed in overtime. Gabriel Davis had 4 touchdowns. Gabriel Davis. And Josh Allen had over 325 yards. For me, I don't believe... Brian just put a comment in. Yeah, they were robbed and the rules were changed. So, also, somebody's not mute.
The rules are the rules.
Okay, well, look, I'll get my point across, and if you want to tell us about the overtime situation after, please feel free. Here, we might see overtime tonight, who knows? Yeah, so what was I talking about? Josh Allen. Yeah, so I don't believe the whole hype around Matthew Stafford's injury. I don't think he's fully fit, and I think it's bull from the Rams. I think it's complete cap. And if I had to choose between Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford, or let's be fair, let's be prudent. If I had to choose between a quarterback, let's say Josh Allen is 90% fit and Matthew Stafford's 75% fit, I'm taking the Bills every day of the week. I genuinely think they win by minimum 7 points tonight, lads. Minimum. But I still think the Rams win the West, if that helps. Overtime discussion, Brian. It's on you now.
No, I maybe feels perfectly clear back then when the rules changed. I felt if you were going to change it for the playoffs, change it for the entirety of the season. I know Mark at the time challenged it around the fact that players will get injured and stuff, but like by the time you get to the playoffs, players are playing with injuries anyway, so you could just lead yourself to getting more injuries come playoff time. So I think there's swings and roundabouts. I mean, no one listened to the Chiefs for 5 years when they were for the last 3 or 4 years. I think they initially requested this to be changed after they lost out in the championship game a couple of years back against the Patriots, and the league and everybody else at the ownership meetings went, just go away and just get over it. So, I mean, there was such a fuss, such a blow up after that game. Reality is they had 13 seconds to see out a game, and they allowed 4 plays in 13 seconds and a timeout and a field goal. They had no one to blame but themselves, But the league listened and the owners listened, and they'll get what they want this season. May not make a difference to them. It will for some other team potentially come playoff time, and maybe not for the Bills. Maybe because they're coasting through the championship games, through the playoffs games. We'll see. And I saw Declan's comment there. I'm not smoking anything tonight. I know who's going to win.
Okay, well, we'll see in the morning. This game is at 1:20 a.m. If you're listening to this in the morning on a podcast, sure, listen away and have a bit of crack. It's grand. Link in the bio for Cassidy Travel, the email, the number for Jamie, etc. Definitely reach out. They can get any holiday you want, NFL related, custom made for yourself. Tell them that we sent you. And also check out the link for NFL Game Pass in the comments in the bio below as well. We are back on Friday at 9:30 p.m. to go over every game ahead of week 1 of the NFL season. So please do find us on Twitter at IRENFL, on TikTok at NFL Ireland, Irish NFL Show on Instagram, and on YouTube just search Irish NFL Show, and on podcast as well. Who wants to introduce our segment tonight? Mark, you seem like a sort of lad that would introduce this segment.
Yes, thanks, Michael. So one of the interesting aspects, and there's a little bit of an intro, obviously we run the video, for us on About the NFL, is there are so many different layers. You can love the coaching. We talk on the officiating with Dean Blandino. We analyse the media contracts, and I get very on next on the Irish NFL show. And now we're going to talk to a partner who is looking at it from a different lens, which is through how the technology helps run certain things around, say, in-play gaming. So with that, Michael, you're going to run the VT.
Yeah, and everyone got a sneak preview of it there. See you at 9:30 tomorrow night, lads, and hey, good luck to everyone watching tonight. If you're a Bills fan or Rams fan, enjoy the season coming back. Haven't heard from Rams NI in a while, so hopefully he'll pop up tonight as well. See you tomorrow night, lads. Cheers.
Enjoy the game.
We pride ourselves on trying to provide every different angle connected with the NFL and how it's all put together, whether it's about the TV contracts, whether it's about officiating with Dean Blandino, or whether it's the various guests that we have on during the year. So one aspect that intrigued us is when you think about the proliferation of gambling markets, and especially in-play markets with the NFL, with the continued deregulation of the gambling in the US, how exactly does all that work? And funnily enough, we came across with our friends in PointsBet that a lot of the technology around this is actually based in Ireland, and the opportunities around getting involved on that side of the fence are based in Ireland as well. So we're joined now by the head of US trading, Kevin Lawler from PointsBet, to give us a bit more insight into this world. Kevin, you're very welcome to join the show. Good to see you.
Thanks very much. Really nice to be on, guys, and I appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to having the conversation.
So, Kevin, look, usually when we have guests on, we ask them what's their Irish connections, kind of a little bit obvious in your case, to be fair, but also about what's their journey in the NFL. And in fact, for you as well, what's your journey in working with PointsBet and how they operate in terms of dealing with the NFL and that part of the house?
Yeah, sure. I'll give a brief kind of background first. I've been in the betting industry since 2013, so, getting on close to 10 years now. Obviously in Ireland, Paddy Power would historically have been a pretty big employer in the industry. That's exactly where I started out as well, initially in tennis, making markets for tennis and trading live tennis. I then moved on to another company called Poker Stars, also in the betting industry in Ireland. I was working there in product. And from there, I moved to PointsBet a little over a year ago. That was, I guess, the opportunity came around in the US once PASPA was repealed, which is basically how legalized gambling opened up in certain states within the US. So people familiar with betting on the in terms of listenership, will be aware that certain states are open for betting. Others are going to open up in mid to near future, and then some of them have decided that they don't want to open. So PointsBet started out in Australia, and then moved once Passport was repealed. They opened an office in New Jersey, started off bit by bit, state by state, and now we're one of the, I won't say the bigger players, because obviously FanDuel and DraftKings are the two big fish in the US sports betting market, but we're definitely in the couple of books after those two. Caesars, MGM, and PointsBet is right there. So we're in 11 states now, and plenty more to come. I am the US head of trading, so I'm actually working remotely from Ireland and have been for the past year. But my family and myself are moving to Denver in the next month, so we're moving to Broncos country. Looking forward to getting out there, swapping one NFL stronghold in Carlo for another NFL stronghold in Denver.
You couldn't ask to be going to a better part of the world than Colorado. I dream of winning the Euro Millions and being able to buy a house and go hiking in Boulder. So, and it's Broncos country. So you'll be sorted, Kevin. You've given us a little bit about, I suppose, your own kind of story there and how you got involved. But like PointsBet have their own Irish story, and obviously at the moment it doesn't operate as a licensed betting operator in Europe. So can you talk to us, I suppose, a little bit about the business in Ireland and what's involved for our viewers so that they can get a sense of that?
Yeah, sure thing. So I think I alluded in the last answer, but PointsBet was an Australian company, still is, partly an Australian company, who then expanded into the US market when the opportunity arose there. From an Irish perspective, the link is through a company called Bannock Technology. Bannock are essentially a proprietary sports modeling business. That were, the founders came from Paddy Power backgrounds, so there would have been sports modelers, quants, some really smart people from Paddy Power back in the day, and then they formed Bannock. They went ahead and built soccer models, they built tennis models, they built NFL models, and through that, then they got acquired by PointsBet, coming up on 2 years probably at this stage, maybe even a little bit more than 2 years at this stage. They're essentially like the in-house modeling department, the modeling team of PointsBet now, and that's like the Irish link. And then I guess moving on from that, there was an Irish PointsBet office established, and it's in the 8 building in the Liberties, and that's a gorgeous modern new office that the team there have moved into. Just a couple of months ago, we had the US CEO over and the global CEO over, so they were glad to see the setup and get a feel for what it's like. Really, really cool office, really modern, really kind of young, kind of, I guess, funky kind of workforce. It's got a nice startup feel, like, if you know what I mean. It's not necessarily a startup anymore, but it still almost feels like that to an extent. So that's the background there. And in terms of like the different roles and people who work within the PointsBet office in the Liberties and in the PointsBet Europe office, like it would be, there's a trading team in there. There's a quant team in there, so that like the majority of quants within PointsBet are based in Ireland. So the modelers and stuff who would build the NFL model and the NBA model and so on, they're all in Dublin. Really smart kind of mathematical backgrounds. You've also got devs, product people, loads of different teams and departments there. So that's the link with Ireland. The main offices are in Denver, Colorado, is the US HQ, and then the Aussie HQ is in Melbourne. So they're basically the three main offices, and there's another one in Toronto and other places like that.
Kevin, as the sport, the NFL has grown over the years, as has the popularity in terms of people betting on the game. And I think one of the most appealing markets for everybody is the in-play markets and the rapidness of the change within the game. How do you structure that in terms of making the odds and understanding what's the technology behind that? Like if you think back to games last season, for example, there was a playoff game where the Chiefs played the Bills, and there was 4 game changes in the last 2 minutes of the game in terms of the score changing. How quickly can you adapt to that situation?
Yeah, that's the interesting part. So historically, and I guess like looking at a lot of sports books, a lot of sportsbooks would have third-party feeds, so it'd be an external company, sending you your NFL lines and your NBA lines and your soccer lines, and they'd basically be the ones who build the model their side, and they'll control everything for you. And PointsBet would have been doing that at the very beginning, but since the Bannock acquisition, we now have all of that in-house. So basically, we have our own NFL model in-house that was, built by the team within PointsBet and is run and managed by the team within PointsBet. So that means that we have far more kind of flexibility and capacity to build our own markets. If some of the NFL traders within the team can, they dream up a new market that they think clients would be interested in, it's literally a meeting with quants and product teams and sit down and thrash it out and try to get that built and launched. So that's really exciting and a really good opportunity for PointsBet, I guess, across all sports, particularly NFL, and not just that, but for our clients as well, who get the benefit of that at the other end. I suppose the biggest difference or the biggest change in betting, and probably particularly NFL, but other sports as well in the US, historically it would have been, you'd have your money line bet or your spread bet, and you'd sit down and watch the game for 3 or 4 hours, and then it'd settle after 3 or 4 hours, and that's it. Whereas now it's very much you'll have a dopamine hit, you'll have your bet, you'll have it settle within 30 seconds, and you go again, and it's huge and exciting, and you're kind of always involved from start to finish. So if you've had your money line bet and your team goes 14 points down in the first quarter, you can lose a bit of interest. It's not as exciting, it's not as interesting. Whereas betting things like player props live in play, or betting lightning markets, as we call them, flash markets as they're probably known in Ireland and the UK, what's going to happen in the next play and what's going to happen in the current drive, literally betting down to that level of granularity. That's really interesting for clients, and that's something that they really enjoy and that we're trying to push at PointsBet.
Kevin, just taking that a step further though, because the market can move so quickly, but also, I'm just fascinated how many variables come into the mix on this. When I think about certain coaches, like we were now with Riverboat Ron kind of going for it on fourth down, and some of the younger breed kind of use in analytics to make more determinations as to when they should go for it or when they should go for two. And sometimes coaches might use suboptimal strategies or just unusual ones. Like I remember Bill Belichick taking an intentional safety against Denver actually a number of years ago that ultimately led to a win. I'm sure Colin remembers that one as well. But I'm just wondering, how do you keep track, or how does the technology keep track of just all those different variables and aspects that go into it? Again, thinking in overtime, somebody deciding to take the wind, for example, really quickly, which changes it, significantly.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I guess at a very broad level, NFL as a sport is more difficult to model than say soccer or tennis, where if you give away a ball in the first half of the soccer game, it's not going to impact the match result price at all. If you fumble a pass, or if something goes wrong in NFL and you're within 10 yards of the opponent's line, or you're within the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, it can have a huge impact in the game, and it can change a team's probability of winning from 95% to 5% based on one fumble or one intercept or one play that's gone wrong. And that's kind of where the difficulty is in modeling it in NFL. But we're very confident, very happy with the product that we've got at PointsBet. Compliments of the in-house model, and it's something that I think we've kind of done pretty well in-house, and we have a really good suite of markets that clients can kind of interact with and get the benefit of from start to finish in the game. In terms of the question, how we deal with these situations and scenarios, how coaches deal with things differently, a lot of that will be built into the model in terms of there's a ton of data that we would have access to, sports modelers and quants would have access to when building the model. So there's literally years of data that you can go back and look at every single play, what coaches like to do in certain scenarios, what other coaches will do. If a coach doesn't have a kind of set structure for how to set up a play, that will be known by the model as well. And then on top of all of that stuff, we'll have literally expert traders trading every game too. So sometimes we'll have traders just looking after a set of games, and other times we'll have traders, for higher profile games. Literally they'll be sitting, they'll be interacting with the model, they'll be moving prices themselves, they'll be looking at what's going on the field of play and making changes based on that. And they will have that expert knowledge as well, whereby they might know what a coach is going to do, and if they feel that the model hasn't adjusted or reacted accordingly, that they can make further changes. So that's another benefit. And like I would say that if you want to offer a really complete kind of NFL offering or product to clients, that if you can have a bunch of traders who are really into their NFL and know exactly what's going on and have a kind of instinctive feeling for what the price should be, that goes a hell of a long way.
Kevin, Mark touched on earlier, I suppose, the deregulation in the States, across a number of states across the country. And I suppose the evolution of betting has changed considerably in the States over the past 3 to 4 years. Are you finding the trends in terms of how the customers behave evolving over the years? Originally it would have been place a bet in the game, place a bet potentially on total points, but as you touched on, with so many aspects available to the customer now, are you finding the trend is changing?
Yeah, the trend is definitely changing. I would say NFL fans, based on my, or NFL bettors, based on my kind of experience in the US since I joined, is that they are slower to transition from pre-match to in-play than some of the other sports that we're betting on in the US. But it's happening. Kind of at PointsBet, we feel like, within a year or 2 years from now, that 75% of our handle is going to come in play. Because that's where kind of the future of betting is, and from our perspective, that's the area that we're focusing on the most. Clients will always put their bets down pre-game, but it's sitting down to enjoy the game and watching it with the app open and having a bet on the next player, the next, the current drive or what's going to happen there. We'll always have the spread, money line, and total, and they'll always be the core markets that will do the vast majority of handle. But outside of that, like we're trying to grow betting on all of the other propositions that we've got. We do in-play prop markets, so like your passing yards, receiving yards, receptions, touchdown passes, all of that kind of stuff, and that's active for the entire game. And then we have a same game parlay product as well, where you can go in and build your own bet within the game. And we'll also keep all of the futures markets open, so if something happens in a Ravens game or whatever, and Lamar makes a great play and someone wants to go in and bet him in real time for the MVP, or just gets a hunch, I'd like to have a bet on the MVP during the game, you can do that at PointsBet as well. We'll also keep the divisions open during a Sunday night slate. We'll keep the conferences and the Super Bowl open during a Sunday night slate. So there's a couple of things we're trying to do, and I guess like the key thing from my perspective is to try and have, pricing is important, and I think anyone who's into betting, and particularly any of your viewership in the US, will be able to kind of attest to this if they go and look at week one's money line spread and total prices at PointsBet and compare that to the industry. They'll see the kind of the preferential or the better pricing that they'll get. But on top of that, like, we're really putting a strong emphasis on uptime, and like I said, because we're trying to transition more towards in play, uptime becomes hugely important. And uptime is basically the amount of time throughout the game while it's in play that the markets are available to bet on. Like, if I don't know if you guys are familiar with betting or do a lot of betting yourselves, but if you go to have an in-play bet during the game and all the markets are suspended, there's really nothing more frustrating. Like, it's at that exact moment that you want to have your bet, when like things are getting really interesting and a team is on the 1 yard from the line, at the end line or whatever. So we've really made a conscious effort to improve our uptime, and last year we got spread, money line, and total to above 96-97% uptime, which is really, really good, and we're trying to improve on that again this year. And then secondary to that, just trying to get touchdown scorers and players to a really high uptime level as well in comparison to all of our competitors. So just acknowledging that that's the way the betting patterns are trending for clients, and then trying to give them that best experience now that we know that.
And Kevin, as I suppose, big week obviously in the NFL. It's kickoff week, and as we're recording this, we have a show actually going out, a recorded show about our picks for the Super Bowl and everything else that might happen over the course of the season. But from a PointsBet perspective, what's the latest Super Bowl outright betting, and have you seen have things shifted since February, since we saw the Rams lift the trophy?
Do you mind repeating that question? Sorry, I lost the connection.
No problem. I was asking in terms of the betting for the Super Bowl, in terms of the outright betting for the Super Bowl at the moment with PointsBet, where it stands.
Apologies. Cheers for that. I got you there. Yeah, so like similar to the rest of the industry, the Bills are favoured with us. They're around the 6-1 mark, and then like a little further down, it's kind of a glut of teams all coming together in around like 10-1, 12-1 mark. Chiefs, Bucks, Packers, all the usual suspects that you would expect to be up there. From my perspective, moving over to Denver and not actually having an NFL team yet to support, that's where I'm going to get in and weigh in behind the Broncos, and they're in around the 20-1 mark. Not sure if they can win, or they can certainly win, but not sure if I'd be betting that more as a fan for something to ride out for the year than actually expecting a return on it. But they're in an interesting enough position with their new quarterback. And it's an exciting time to be going there from a sports perspective. In terms of like what teams or market moves we've seen from the off season, or from when the lines initially went up following last year's Super Bowl, we would have been live with our outrights since last year's Super Bowl. Probably the two teams with the biggest difference in price between then and now are the Eagles and the Chargers. So the Eagles, like their quarterback Justin Herbert, he's kind of, I guess, most of the books kind of rate him pretty highly as, the best, if not one of the best, certainly quarterbacks in the game. So there's been a lot of money for them, and their prices changed and reduced the whole way through. And then the Eagles have kind of just revamped, or the Chargers have kind of just revamped their team a little bit through the off season, and they definitely have a lot of potential, and that's another team. So just in terms of weight and money, they're probably the two that we're looking at from PointsBet side, and maybe one that clients might like to have a bet on if they haven't had their money down already. But that's certainly, from our side, probably the most interesting thing for the Super Bowl.
And Kevin, if someone wanted to, put a $5 on the New York Giants, for example, at least they're guaranteed to lose a $5. So that's another thing they could explore doing.
Yeah, exactly. I guess like if people are, if you are kind of wondering what, are there any not tips, but stuff that some of the guys like within the team, some of the NFL traders, there's a couple of the guys who are quite keen on Lamar for MVP, and also like Lamar in the Offensive Player of the Year market. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, as obviously huge NFL guys. And then outside of that, we like Rashan Gary in the Defensive Player of the Year, and Baker Mayfield in Comeback Player of the Year. So if anyone does like a punt, maybe those are some selections that might take your fancy.
Jesus, Kevin, we wish we talked to you before we'd done all our predictions on offensive player and defensive player as well. But we did a whole prediction show on that, which is going out. So that's we'll see how all that pans out ultimately. But look, Kevin, I kind of mentioned at the start of that PointsBet aren't licensed in Europe. We're going to be talking to you and some members of the team during the year, but this is a partnership that's not about betting per se or encouraging people to sign up. But in fact, it is interesting and exciting because, as you alluded to, you've got all these great engineering roles, you've got trader roles, for example, but you've got this technology-based roles in the Liberties in Dublin that are open maybe for people with a particular interest in US sports or with that technology background that are interested in opportunities with you. So where would they go to find out more or explore some of the things that you talked about here in terms of the interesting roles and opportunities you've got coming up there?
Yeah, sure. You can certainly find us on LinkedIn. If you search PointsBet, you'll find us, and if you search Dublin PointsBet, you'll find the Dublin office. There's a mailing address as well, dublin@pointsbet.com. You'll get someone there who'll reply pretty quickly on there. We're always trying to find good people, people who are, if you're interested in sports, if you've never considered this before and are hearing it now and it sounds, wow, that's something I'm interested in. I guess skills that we'd be looking for across any of the roles would be like, critical thinking and ideally good with numbers. But there are certainly dev roles, tech roles. As I said, we have a trading team there. There's an open role within trading right now. But if you log on to the PointsBet LinkedIn, there's tons of open and vacant opportunities there. So as I say, I think I alluded to at the beginning of the conversation, but it does have a nice feel to it. It feels like a startup. It still has that kind of energy, which is great. It doesn't have, there's no kind of stuffy or corporate feel, which is, really enjoyable. And the office in the Liberty is a breath of fresh air as well. It's a really nice place to work. And you're working with other kind of, energetic and people who are excited about the opportunity. So if you are interested, apply. The worst you can do is get offered a job and then you turn it down. So by all means, we're always interested in hearing from good people.
Kevin, we appreciate it's a very busy week for yourself, for PointsBet. We're only a couple of hours away from the opening game. We want to thank you for taking time to come on the show, and looking forward to speaking to you and other members of PointsBet throughout the course of the next few months, where we get to digest the season and understand where the money is going towards the Super Bowl. I'm hoping things will change dramatically on that betting front as the season progresses. But again, we want to thank you for coming on, and we wish you well with your move to Denver.
Yeah, thanks a million, lads. Appreciate the opportunity, and good luck with the show for the season.